Got these propulsors from David West, teach you to get that bounce. Ironically, they kind of help you get your cadence down. For those of you that are runners, and I don't know all that well yet, but you know the importance of kind of quick feet and getting a rhythm going. This will help make you choppier. You want to be more like a rabbit than you are a big old polar bear. Say that you should approximately have about 180 steps per minute when you're running. So that means your feet are kind of moving like this. You got these, for some people it might mean you got to take a choppier step. It's just an interesting thing to practice. I haven't messed with it that much yet, but I think these propulsors help you move your feet a lot too, because teaching you how much upper body movement you really need when you're running. I would advise you guys to purchase these for someone in your family, your nephew, your niece, someone that plays a sport in your family, or for yourself if you're a runner or volleyball player, whatever it is that you do, because these will teach you how to absorb energy. How do you absorb energy? How do you jump down from a curb? Well, you don't jump down from a curb like this. You jump down from a curb like this. You want to absorb the energy. When you jump, you're going to jump and you're going to land. And when you're running, you're actually pushing a lot of force into the ground, a lot of energy into the ground. Your feet are kind of attacking the ground. But if we get this going side to side, this can actually be pretty fluid. So I'm going to go here, boom, side to side. Now I can start to turn this into me going forward and backwards with the arms. But it starts here with a dip. See, I'm doing a dip, and we want head to go over the foot. We want the foot to travel this way. When you run, you want it to spin outward a bit. We actually want to get into a little bit of pronation. We want the foot to go like this, and to flip outward. Why do we want all this shit to happen when we're running? Because we're looking for free energy. How do we get like a little bonus out of what we're already doing? How do we get momentum from momentum? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So for the shortening of one muscle, it's the lengthening of another muscle. When you go to kick your foot back, the real runners, they kick their foot back this way so hard, they're producing so much force that this heel will kick them in the ass. And they get into this pose running position that I cannot really mimic, where this heel is super close to their butt and they're in this perfect position. The most perfect, beautiful thing you've ever seen. And he's like this, the shoulders real forward. You're like, holy shit, I had no idea he was in these positions. You'd be completely shocked. You would just never even have known that these athletes are going here and here and here and here so much as they're producing all that force. We're going to be meeting up with Matt Choi in a couple minutes today. I'm excited to show him these because he's a runner. This guy's done a bunch of marathons, has really good speed. I don't want to go too crazy because I got an 18-mile run tomorrow. Today will just be, 3-4 miles, something like that. Here's how I warm up for a run. I jog lightly, 30 seconds to a minute. I walk for approximately a similar time. Sometimes I'm looking for music on my phone. Sometimes I'm looking to listen to a podcast. I just repeat, I go back to it. As I'm doing this, I might think about flexing my feet, flexing my calves, flexing my shins, bringing the knees up a bit, doing a little bit of this. It's all really simple. I may also do this. I might walk backwards for a little bit. By the time I do that 2 or 3 times, I might finish with a jog for about 3 minutes just to get the body warm for about 3 minutes straight, then maybe walk 30 seconds and then go again. By doing that, there seems to be like less blood in my calves. I don't know about you guys, but those of us out there that got some calves on us, my calves just go whoop right in the beginning, and they're just so full of blood that I can barely move. So that's how I warm up for my runs. Seems to be working pretty good. Today is day 150 of run every day for me. We got Matt Choi joining us today. A lot of people have questions of how to stay healthy while running. Number one is study how to run. Number two is don't run like an idiot with your actual running. Like, don't have your running be so intense, so frequent, or have so much volume to it that you can't recover from it. The number three way to stay healthy for running is recovery. However much you run, I say you need to spend maybe about quarter the amount of time in recovery, maybe even half. 8-9 hours of sleep if you want to get serious about this. If you are saying that you want to be a runner, number four way is your nutrition. If you're saying that you want to be a runner and you want to be good at this, but you're only sleeping 6 hours and you're not on a good diet, it tells me you're not as interested in this as you think you are. The higher your interest level, the deeper you're gonna go. I know this from hitting some world-class totals in powerlifting, squatting over 1,000 pounds, benching 854, deadlifting 766, and now I'm on a mission and I'm getting ready to run the Boston Marathon. My recovery is a massive, massive part of this story and this journey, and it's something I've spent a lot of time doing. How do you recover? What is recovery for running? The main thing to take care of is the lower body, kind of from the hips down, but we can even go down lower and go just the knee down. Cold plunging is amazing, it's effective, but if you don't have the money for that, you can just try to find something that you can get your lower leg into, even if it's kind of almost just your foot. That's gonna be great recovery, because what's taking the most pounding is our feet. So some sort of cold therapy. You can also just use your shower for cold and hot contrast, maybe your pool in the winter time, and so forth. Be creative with it. Don't tell me that you don't have money for it. I want to hear that you're trying it and that you're figuring out a way to implement it because you're interested enough, right? Another way you recover, I already mentioned sleep. I already mentioned nutrition. Those are massive when it comes to recovery, and for some reason they're forgotten. Myofascial release. Getting some sort of massage therapist is really effective. However, you have to be your own therapist. You have to take care of yourself. And you're going to do that by doing myofascial release techniques on yourself. I share them in some videos on my YouTube channel, so make sure you check those out. But every moment that you have an opportunity to do something that's gonna help you recover, you take it. I'm not a fan of stretching and mobility work, but if that works for you and that's something that you like, then make sure you're doing that. I am doing some mobility work via some of the myofascial release stuff. Basically all it is like you find something hard and you just rub on it. So I would lay on the ground and I would get this on my hip to open up the hip flexor, or a ball or a foam roller or any of those things. And you really want to scrape these lines out, get into the shins, get into this guy here, get into the calves. Here we go. What's up, man? Good morning.
Morning, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Nice to see you in person.
This is how a real runner handles the weather.
Adversity. Honestly, I forgot to bring some. I didn't think Sacramento's gonna be this chilly. So I was just like, oh shoot, I'm gonna have to just run in shorts, t-shirt. Here we are. You got a lot of layers on.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll layer up. I like to layer up.
Hell yeah. Dude, I'm down for easy mile. I mean, down for easy miles. I ran a marathon on Sunday, so.
What do you think of these kind of shoes? Can you talk people through the carbon foot plate stuff?
Well, one, they're great shoes for races specifically. But I think when you're doing daily training, you don't want as much of a squishy cushion. Mm-hmm. So personally for me, I don't really wear carbon fiber shoes unless it's for races or if I'm doing like a long run where it's like marathon paces. Just like to have my foot not rely on the carbon fiber plate and the squishiness of the max cushion. I want to get into as much minimal shoes as possible. It's kind of like the Born to Run theory, that whole concept. Right. A lot of runners give me shit for it. They're like, dude, I want to wear my $250 pairs of shoes. I'm like, well then go for it. I mean, who am I to say?
I wanted to show you these guys. Are you familiar with David Weck at all?
I know David Weck through you.
The Weck method and all that stuff?
Yes.
This is to try to get you kind of in a nice rhythm with your run. And I would like to see you just play with them. You think of them and whenever you want to turn them back over to me, you can. Here's always how we start, just because I'm a little superstitious. So we always start over here.
Okay.
And we punch this guy. This little eyeball. See the eyeball?
This?
Yeah, we give the eyeball a punch. Boom.
I love that.
Boom.
It's my first time in Sacramento.
Yeah, it's amazing up here. I like it a lot. You've been to like Los Angeles and stuff before, I'm sure.
Yes, that part of California. I actually lived in Las Vegas as a kid. So I lived on the West Coast for a couple years, but never made it up this north. I feel like I'm back in like music class. With like the
yeah, right. Yeah, little maracas. Yeah, some of the stuff that Weck talks about is this idea of getting your head over your foot, helping you absorb energy as you're running, a little internal, external rotation. of the upper body and the lower body.
A lot of those running and movement like specialists, I'm always intrigued because I think there's always opportunities to pull something from it, you know? And I think that's like, even when I first met the GOATA guys in Louisiana, like, I didn't take like their whole concept, but like, dude, there's so many pieces of it that I'm like, hold on. Like, this stuff really does translate into forward locomotion.
They have a lot of good points.
They do.
And then also maybe, you know, some of these guys, they don't want you to like lift at all. And it's a little too far probably.
I think so. Because personally, I like lifting, honestly. And it's just a part of my routine.
I like it for the mental aspect of it. Just getting lost in training. And like I said, it's kind of fucking yourself up here and there.
It's pushing it for the mind. And then there's an understanding equally, like when you're almost taking it too far.
Some of what I'm doing with my training, because I'm so new to stuff, rules 1 through 3 for me are don't get injured.
Everything's gonna take some level of sacrifice and time up front at least, right? I wish like people could understand, like even my running journey, like I'm a football guy. Like running was always punishment for me. So the thought of like even doing this as like a, oh yeah, let's go run a marathon and like an ultra, like I never would have fathomed it until COVID happened. I got laid off as a trainer. I was sitting at my mom's house, like figuring out how I'm gonna like really take advantage of the next couple months. And I just went all in on content. I was listening to Can't Hurt Me by Goggins, and that's really what started my running journey.
Goggins is amazing.
For some people, they're indifferent about Goggins. Personally, just such a big fan because he's doing so much net positive things.
Oh yeah.
Even though his message can be a little crazy for most people that hear it.
I think what happens sometimes is people shoot the messenger, you know?
Yeah.
Because the guy's like yelling or he's excited, and he's not yelling because he's trying to yell at you. He's just fired up and he's just sharing his experiences with you, you know? You did the Houston Marathon.
Yes.
How many marathons have you done and how long have you been running for?
So Houston was number 6. I've been running for probably 2 years. My 26th birthday, 2021, was my first marathon ever. That year I was like, you know what? I want every new year, I want to run however many miles I turn. So that was like 26 for 26.
Oh, there you go.
So yeah, so Houston was number 6 for me. Started really running in the past 2 years.
What do you think the best way for someone to get into running would be? Like, no background. Right now they're, let's say, 40 pounds heavier than they'd like to be.
As I've done more research on this, before I would say go out, start with just like walking. For someone who's just walking, as they start to create more movement for themselves, naturally their joints and limbs will feel better. They'll start to lose some of the weight off. But now as I've read more Born to Run 2, the second one, a lot of them were like talking about how like speed development early on, no matter if you're big, small, short, whatever, but creating your body and utilizing its fast twitch muscle fibers has been shown to like lead to really good results because automatically you have better running form. You're more landing on the forefoot, midfoot, and naturally you're just in a more natural gait.
So push the intensity a tiny bit.
A little bit.
Then the duration might have to be less.
1000%.
Frequency might have to be a little less.
Yep, exactly.
Maybe one time a week for someone that's new, have a workout that has a little bit of intervals in it.
Exactly.
And we say little bit of intervals, we're talking like maybe pick up the pace for 15 to 30 seconds in a run and go back and forth between that and probably like a walk. Walk for 2-3 minutes, get your wind, pick up the pacing and that kind of thing.
100%. And I think everyone's at a different starting point. So obviously having like that self-awareness first, like realizing like if you haven't walked in years, you know, maybe asking someone to do an interval is asking a lot. So I think it's really just gauging where you're at. But the strategy, the actual like technicality of it, I'm sure different running coaches will give you different answers too, you know?
One of the things I found that I think is elusive in terms of information for running is there's a huge difference between jogging and running.
Facts.
You know, I would say, and maybe different people have different interpretations of this, but if you're running like anything under like 9-minute miles, you're kind of running. Anything above like 10 and a half, you're kind of jogging. And it's not to insult anybody, but it's just the intensity. Like, to me right here, this is pretty close to like a run because there's a stride and a rhythm to it. Jog is like staying real low, slow, and you're very protected. And I think just about anybody can probably go from a little bit of walking to jogging pretty easily. But running, is going to take a while longer
to really build.
And you should really ask yourself, when's the last time you really ran?
Yep.
And if it's been 10 years, be very, very careful, yeah.
And then there's a level of actually sprinting, completely different.
Different world. Walking is heel striking.
Yep.
Jogging is forefoot.
Yep.
Sprinting is toes.
Yep. And I would say jogging could be also like a midfoot strike potentially.
Right. And could even be a little heel.
Yeah.
I don't see that being like, but if you have symptoms, then you got to examine it, right?
Yeah.
Got knee stuff or whatever.
I think like to your point right there, you know, understanding like your level of pain tolerance. At the end of the day, for most people, regardless of where you're at, what level, you shouldn't be in pain.
Right.
And if you're in pain, it's your body's signal telling you that, hey, there's an inefficient moving pattern. And I think figuring that out, dude, Kelly Starrett's book, I know you guys are good friends with Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
His Ready to Run book is so goddamn good.
Yeah. He's amazing.
Dude, he's freaking so amazing. I mean, I've learned so much.
Couple leopard book too.
Bro, all of his literature. I'm excited for Built to Move actually. I want to give that to my parents because I think it'll resonate with them even more, I think. But I found this really helpful for me and like mitigating your own injuries, right? Like almost being your own physical therapist.
I just talked about it 2 minutes ago before I ran into you.
Yeah, it's like, I think that's important, and I get that we're in the running, like the fitness space in general, so it means more to us. But I think for most people, if they can understand a little bit of that knowledge, it'll take them their longevity through the roof.
What are 2 or 3 ways that you're your own physical therapist?
Doing soft tissue work is probably where it starts first. I mean, literally, whether it's foam rollers, like any trigger point balls, like just like knowing like what areas I'm utilizing a lot and just doing a lot of jiu-jitsu work. Good morning, man. I think that will be the first. And then the second is like just incorporating certain exercises that running does not really create in the gym environment. I've worked with a lot of PTs in the past that are like, all right, well, like, you know, where am I inefficient? Figuring out like what movements I can do in the gym that'll translate into my running. So I think it was like a mixture of those two, the soft tissue and then the actual implementation of exercises.
So lifting, myofascial release.
Yeah, I think the sled is a freaking game changer. The sled is
pushing and pulling a sled.
All of it, yeah, crossing over steps. It's just, I think it's the most realistic position for running, and let alone for most athletes in general.
Yeah, my son, he put it so smoothly. He was like, it's advanced walking. And I was like, dude, you've been paying attention, I guess, you know? Pretty awesome.
These things are nice.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they?
And for me specifically, Mark, I always bring my phone when I go on runs, and I record every clip. So my forearm gets so freaking worked, and this is a good way to train it, actually.
You know, it's minimal, but you are carrying extra weight.
No, it is.
Got an extra 1.5 pounds or 2 in the hands. But you guys hear that click? You hear the way they're in rhythm. Try going like elbows out and pushing down into the ground and popping up. So you can actually take both of them and just put them together, just for the sake of the drill, and do Dion. Remember Dion did that when he was intercept? Yeah. Now work that rotation of the upper body. Yep. So I found that the more I exaggerate that when I'm going fast for me, the faster I can move without injury. It feels amazing because it's a lot of head over foot. It's a lot of side bending. You get going here like this. It's also a way to get extra movement with like free movement. So if you watch, which I'm sure you've seen a million times, like Usain Bolt's leg on a sprint, and the leg kicks back so far that it goes up. So he kicks it so hard, he's got so much force generated into the ground that his heel hits him in the ass. And then he's in that pose. I'm sure you're familiar with pose running a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, not that we're gonna produce that much force the way he does. But this can help you kind of mimic, I think, what some of the big boys do naturally.
Yeah. That side bend, Mark, I didn't really first unlock that until I met Bam with the Go-To guy.
Oh yeah.
And then like, I didn't realize, I'm like, hold on. You're right, because even when you're doing a push press,
Yeah.
there's a lot of that, like those rhomboids or whatever the muscle is there that you can really fire. And I'm like, oh shit. And I didn't feel it until I started swimming. And I was like, oh shit, now the unlock is there when you get into the pool.
Yeah, you got swimming and running as being two things that are beautiful for the language of the human body, which is in a sling pattern, an X pattern, left shoulder connected to the right hip connected to the left shoulder, the left hip connected to the right shoulder, and vice versa. And you have that same X pattern in the back through your fascia. So when we do this and we get nice rotation, you're just playing into that system. Like I'm breathing, but this feels pretty effortless to do this. It feels like I'm on like an elliptical. Nice hoodie. That was one of my brand.
Yeah. You're on your run streak.
Yep.
How has that been feeling for you?
Great. Yeah, it's been feeling really good. I just have to kind of monitor it all, you know? Tomorrow, I got like 18 miles.
Nice.
The last handful of workouts have been, the intensity's been cranked up. I just view it as a challenge. I'm like, the workouts are only as good as your recovery, and I'm gonna fucking recover from these. So I'm gonna eat well, and I'm gonna pay attention to my sleep. I just shifted to allowing for 9 hours of sleep each night, the best I can, you know, reasonably. But yeah, running every day is a way to kind of just say, fuck it. Like, who cares how far I run? Of course. Just run every day and develop that habit. What gets you out of bed? What inspires you? You know, I'm fired up every day to do this. And every day is a little different. I did 15 surges the other day within an 8-mile run, and each surge was a minute long. And that's it's a hellish thing to do, but I was like, this is gonna be such a great challenge. I can't wait to feel what I'm gonna get from this.
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh man,
Well, yeah.
it's gonna be cold, it's raining. The rain kind of added to it. It gave me like goosebumps. I was like fired up.
You know, some of the people that like I look up to the most are guys like you that are like reinventing themselves. Right. And I think it's such a great model of just like, you know, I think so many times humans put themselves in boxes like, I'm just an accountant, I'm just this, and like, then you like, you never are curious about what you can do. And you don't try new shit.
Yeah, when you're 40, you could potentially be entering a deadlift competition.
1000%.
And you can weigh 210. Be like, I bulked up for this. This is gonna be fun. You know, then you come out of that and you got new respect for it and you start doing other things. So tell us about heart rate, and maybe some people have come across the maffetone method. You know, training, I believe at like, what is it, 80% of your heart rate?
Yep, it's kind of staying in zone 2. The maffetone itself, this guy, Phil Maffetone, has been in the running community for a long time, but the method is basically 180 minus your age, and that should be like the max heart rate that you train at.
And there could be variation within that.
Exactly.
And he writes the whole book about it.
Exactly, which I would definitely, the maffetone method itself for new runners is a great way to like kind of build your base and understand your body a little bit more. So for example, I'm 27, so 180 minus 27, what is that, 150, 153. So ideally, I wouldn't want my heart rate higher than that. And to your question earlier about the watches or heart rate itself, a lot of the watches or sport wearables aren't gonna measure your heart rate exactly. So the best way to get an accurate reading is actually wearing a heart strap that then connects to the watches. Because from my experience, these are like anywhere from 10 to 20 beats per minute off.
And randomly way off every once in a while.
Way off.
Like it will go crazy and you're like, I'm gonna die.
Literally, it says you're redlining and you're like, I'm not redlining.
I had mine go up to 220 and I just took it off. I'm like, I'm not even really breathing that hard.
Yeah, I think it's good data to have, but I think for a lot of new runners, like don't get so like deep dive into the data where you feel like, oh my God, I'm pushing too hard or not pushing enough.
And if you forget your watch or your heart rate, don't not work out for the day.
Exactly, just yeah, go out and kind of go out for a feel. I think
I actually have some friends, Mark, that they refuse to buy any wearable.
Yes.
They only want to go off feel. And you'll never know like your paces and things, but it's intuition. It's a great way to like understand your body and listen to it.
But for the majority of like your training for marathons, what's your best marathon time?
My best marathon time's been a 2:57.
And what does that represent in?
From out
Yeah.
pace. That is that's a 6:45 pace. 6:40 to 6:45. Pretty much after any hard effort I do during the week, it's always followed up by a recovery run. And I'm only doing a hard effort, like I said, like probably once a week, and then the long run, which then I have a rest day typically after a long run. But yes, 80%, mostly 80% of my runs are done at an easy pace, and then the other 20 sprinkled in faster tempos. A lot of it, I mean, dude, when I was watching a lot of Nick Bear's content, I watched the episode you guys had with Nick. A lot of my like general knowledge when I was first coming up into space was from Nick. And obviously Jeff Cunningham as well.
Well, he was really giving good information because he was learning it as he was going. And he has a running history, but he didn't know what he was doing, which made it compelling. Plus he's big. You're like, this is a chunky guy.
He's a big dude.
Running around. He's like 210, 220, and in amazing shape.
Honestly, Mark, going into this past training block, going into Houston, I probably hit like 70, 75% of my workouts because of travel.
Yeah.
And I was making posts about this on social, like, guys, everyone's busy.
Right.
It's hard to be it's hard to be on all the time.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are like, oh my God, I'm not ready. I missed this workout, I missed that workout. But like most people aren't gonna lose their fitness if they don't do every rep of the workout.
Right.
It's obviously not ideal. You wanna hit as much of the workout as you can, but I think so many people beat themselves up when it's like, you're supposed to do 10,000 meter repeats and you only do 8. Like understanding your body and knowing when to shut it down, whether you're just not there mentally or your body's just not responding to it either, you know?
Yeah, you have to kind of realize everything's a stress, including your training.
Including the way you think about that shit.
Yeah, if you're like too up in your head about particular runs. It's amazing seeing runners post, pictures, sometimes videos. If you look in their eyes, they look like a person that's high almost. Because you are,
I mean, the runner's high is a level of, shit, it could be the best drug in the world.
Is there any intention of like anything you're doing with like your feet or your arms, or like you've been doing it long enough to where maybe there's a little less focus, it's just natural? But I noticed like you, probably because of the speed we're running, you stay pretty low to the ground. Is there any intent behind that?
No intent. I think most of it is just I want to have like a soft landing on my knees. So I just keep them slightly bent.
Yep.
And I just want to, I focus on like the mid-foot strike. Early on, Mark, I was so gung-ho, like, oh, I need to be a 4-foot runner. But the more research I did and the more testing I did on myself, I realized, I'm like, wait, why are my shins and my freaking plantar fascia getting so freaking inflamed? And a lot of it had to do with because as I was building up more volume, running on your toes a lot, you really work the gastro, the big part of the calf.
Right.
And when that shit gets super tight, it then leads pain up into the shin and then into the fascia. So I was like, hold on. If I change my energy return and maybe land more mid-foot where my shock absorbers can do a little bit better job of like absorbing it, it actually helped reduce some of the pain in the shins. So then I just went through a whole restructure of my foot and getting out of running shoes as much as possible when I'm not running. So now I pretty much only wear running shoes when I'm running. When I'm doing other stuff, I'm wearing minimal shoes.
Same here. And the advantage of some of the running shoes is like the cushion, the technology, the carbon foot plate. Yep. Makes a difference. I've subscribed to wearing the carbon foot plate for most workouts. Fair. Only because I wanted to make a distinct decision and I wanted to make sure that my shoes didn't hurt when I'm running 26 miles. This is gonna be my first marathon, Boston Marathon.
Oh shit, let's go! I'm running in April too.
Oh, sick.
Let's freaking go, dude, that's fucking awesome. That's freaking amazing. You're gonna love that shit.
Yeah, I heard there's some miles Or some hills.
Some hills, dude.
Got like
Heartbreak Hill.
18 miles.
It's but Mark, I think it's one of those things where it's almost like people like not making it over
Yeah, I
dramatic.
understand.
But yeah, it's like if you've done some hill training, it's definitely not gonna be easy. If it was flat, it'd be much nicer. But it creates a little bit of adversity in a race. But yeah, man, Boston's gonna be fun. But no, I think to your point, Mark, there's a running, I forgot his name, but he's a firm believer in like practice how you're gonna play. Yeah. So in your speed workouts, in your marathon long runs, you should wear carbon shoes because that's exactly what you're gonna use. Now, a different coach might be like, all right, well, if you don't use carbon fiber shoes, you're making it a little bit tougher for yourself. So if you can still hit your times, it should give you that mental confidence. Like once I get the shoes on, I'm gonna be even faster.
Yeah, and I probably maybe about 20% of the time or so, I'll wear like the Ultra Escalante, which is just kind of like a run, walk shoe kind of deal. And because I understand the importance of building up the ankles and the calves. And I also do a lot of training for my feet, a lot of myofascial release. I run on the beach a lot. So I really make sure that it kind of reminds me of lifting. Like if you're a lifter and you like to use straps in training, you know, and also intentionally train your grip. And that way you're gonna get more out of your training, less wear and tear on your elbows and your joints. You're gonna be able to lift heavier for more reps, more sets, more overall work, more overall volume. I'd say the same is true with running. These kind of shoes are revolutionary. For somebody that can't really run or thinks they can't run,
it could really help.
It can help a ton.
Yeah.
Especially in the beginning, but I would also keep in mind what we just said. Don't underestimate the power of training that lower leg, from the knee down especially.
If you just look at literature and history, I mean, indigenous people didn't have this technology.
Yeah, right.
And they ran these distances. So I think history in these cases, like if you just look back, it's a great example. And even if you just get the knowledge of it, to your point, like Mark, you put in time to really strengthen your feet to be able to develop that. Most people are lazy. Right. And they don't want to do the extra stuff. So getting the insole is like a lifesaver for them. Yeah. You know, because if that pain is eliminated, that's all they know at that point.
Do you wear toe socks, and have you gotten into the yoga toes and things like that?
I've tested some of the Injinjis with the toe socks. Honestly, I'm not as much of a fan. I don't like how it gets like so splayed out personally. And then the toe spreaders, I haven't really messed around much. My toes are actually pretty like even. They're okay. Yeah, they're okay. Exactly. So like, I don't know if it was from football or just playing sports my whole life, but they're pretty splayed out.
What I would suggest is, for anybody listening out there, I think some form of yoga toes or toe splay product can be great, and it could be a thing that's just used when you're done with your runs. Throw it on occasionally. It's nice to actually walk around in them a bit. But I use them a lot, and they help kind of what I would say decompress your feet. So they're nice to use. It's not gonna like, you know, be some huge game changer, but especially if your toes are over each other. You know, a lot of runners and people in general have a bunion where the big toe is pushed in this direction towards the other toe, and they think it's just genetics, and they think it's just the way they are, but they're that way from running probably in shoes that don't fit well, or even just living in shoes that don't fit well. So you want to look into some barefoot shoe products, I think.
And I mean, Mark, a lot of this stuff that we're saying is all like a 1% improvement, right? Like these are like small things over time that compound, that really you'll see the benefits for. But most people are gonna be like, oh, so I need to do minimalist shoes, I need to do toe spreaders, I need to do X, Y, and Z, I need to do more soft tissue. But over time, as you build these practices into your routine, into your habits, like one, it doesn't seem as much of a stress, and you'll start to feel so much better. And I think that is where the unlock happens for most people. It's like, oh shit, I've been doing these toe spreaders for 300 days out of the year. I feel so much better, or whatever it is.
Yeah, try one thing at a time. And test it out yourself. You know, I'm kind of a guy who sometimes is frustrated by hearing people recite science all the time. But I think that your job as a human being in general is to be
on yourself.
Test out your beliefs. Like, what's your religion and why? Is it because that's what your parents did? Maybe that doesn't fit everything, you know, like maybe you start to think about it and you're like, well, that's weird. Like, I don't actually believe that. Test your beliefs, test other people's beliefs, see if they work, see if they fail. Oh, David Weck says to run with your head over your foot. I'm gonna try that. Try it a couple times, you're like, you got hurt or you hated it, and you're already running 7-minute miles. I'm like, you know, you start to think about it, it's like, sounds like you're doing good, bro.
Yeah,
like,
it's true.
It's good that you tested it, but you didn't like it, move on to the next thing. Keep testing stuff out.
More. Question everything.
Yeah, be philosophical. Do you bring liquid with you on runs?
I personally don't. Are you talking training or like actual race? Or both?
Yeah, a little bit of both.
For training, I typically don't. I'll bring gels with me on long runs.
Fanny pack and gels.
Yeah, and, or I'll just, morning guys, or I'll just stop by my car and do loops.
I do that sometimes.
Because I typically have my phone, so I'm like, all right, I'm already one hand gone. But I will bring gels with me on those long runs. Same thing for the marathon. I just bring my phone with me, pack up a ton of gels, and then to your point, I'll just, at every water station, I grab water. Even if I feel like I'm good, because when you feel good at mile 3, if you don't hydrate early, at mile 22, you start to feel it.
One thing I would suggest that you give a try to is to weigh yourself, similar conditions, clothing wise, before a run and after a run. And what some of the research shows, some information out there, start to lose about 2% hydration, performance can go down quite a bit. So your 6:40 minute mile on mile 20 might start to really feel like you're now trying to do a 5-minute mile. You got to put so much effort in. So maybe for you on anything that's like above 20 miles or 18 miles or so, might be good to have about 16 ounces of fluid just to mitigate the weight loss with some electrolytes in it. Because let's say, so I did this the other day. I weighed 227 in the morning before I left for my run. Came back from my run, and even with a lot of liquid, this was on a 16-mile run, I had a pack full of water. I had a little mini thing I was holding in my hand. I had gels, weighed 217. Lost 10 pounds in the run. So it's like, you know what, so if you're a seasoned runner, maybe it's like less impact because you've handled all that mentally before.
Yeah.
And you know what that's like. But maybe if you're newer, it's like,
it's such a drastic change to the body.
yeah.
No, actually, that's I'm gonna get a scale.
So I think,
I wanna see.
So for me, I figured out what I need for the Boston Marathon is about a gallon.
Of throughout the race.
Of liquid, yeah. You know, that doesn't mean I have to lug around 8 pounds of liquid, but
of course, having enough.
Maybe 5 pounds. So,
are you typically, what electrolyte drink are you, or supplement are you utilizing?
yeah, I make some of my own supplements. So I utilize my own hydration, which is just called Hydration. The brand is called Within You, and it's got some amino acids, sodium, magnesium, calcium, all that stuff. I also use some of Nick's products, Nick Bear, BPN. I use his aminos, along with, he has a carb product, and I'll mix those two together.
The G1M, right?
Yes. And I'll sometimes put, depending on how much liquid I got, I'll do like about 100 grams of carbs with a scoop of the aminos and an electrolyte packet. If you don't have some of that stuff, like I think BCAAs along with some salt
Some form of electrolytes.
And the gels, I think all that would carry you through pretty well, or some honey.
That's a great one too.
Yeah, those are all decent options.
Yeah, with nutrition, it's interesting because it's really so individual. It's like a diet. And you got to test a lot of stuff and see what works with your gut.
That's a huge part. So
yeah, because sometimes you just don't digest these gels well, man.
Talk about that on the podcast.
That shit sucks. Dude, I had to go to the bathroom twice in Houston. And even when I ran my fastest marathon, I had to take a shit. I'm like, dude, it sucks, dude. It just gets you out of your flow.
On that note, I would say if you haven't really done that before, start out with about 25 grams of carbohydrates. You can work your way up. We'll flip around right here, start to head back. So I want you to try this kind of side running thing that Weck showed me. Some of these things are just drills, and they're just to build awareness into your body. So Weck is really big. We're gonna stop for just a second. Weck is really big on landing this side, this head goes over this foot. We go here, this head goes over this foot. We're gonna get a little bit of pronation in this back foot, because that back foot's gonna go that way and away, so it's like kind of heels out.
It's at the corner.
Yeah, corner, a bow, as the go-to guys point out. These are all really good principles. But what we're gonna work on is this side run.
Okay.
So we're gonna be
here.
I
see, like they stay on one side.
Yeah, they stay on one side.
Okay.
Then we're gonna switch to the other side. And then we're gonna work on going through back and forth. And a lot of it is kind of side to side, more so than just regular running. So I don't want people to think like, this is the way you're gonna run. This is more like for feel, and you might find some of the movement in this refreshing, and you might implement some of it into your run. I think the biggest thing I've learned in the last, there's like a shit ton of stuff that I've learned in the last 2 years has accelerated progress in so many different things. But when we're running and we get rotation, but his shoulder goes forward on this side, what happens to the other shoulder? It went backwards. And notice how he naturally just dipped to this side. So this shoulder went down. What happened to the other shoulder? It went up. So when you do your overhead presses in the gym and you're like, oh my God, like something's wrong with my shoulder's killing me. Rather than concentrating on this shoulder not working properly, maybe this shoulder's not getting in line with your ear the way you want, maybe you feel stiff and you're only pressing out here. Concentrate on this shoulder and concentrate on getting some of that energy to this side over to this other side. I'm on this slant. I'm gonna press with this hand, whoosh. Just concentrate on this shoulder, right? So what happens when we concentrate? How do I get that shoulder to move that way? Oh, that comes from the lat. Ah, would you look at that? The lat has a reciprocal relationship with the opposite hip. Our psoas is in a crisscross pattern down here. It goes from right here to right here. This guy goes from right here to right here. There's these crisscross patterns throughout the entire body. And so if you're having trouble moving one side, you want to think instead of driving your knees up higher, think about just producing more force into the ground. You'll end up with a similar result. You'll be like, oh my God, my knees came up. And kind of vice versa, if you're having trouble getting that leg to extend back away from the body because you don't have good hip extension, maybe if you focus on hip flexion, what would happen? If you focus on hip flexion here, this other guy automatically has to travel backwards more. It's this wonderful relationship that the body has with itself, and it can be really, really powerful for you. Next time you go to pick up dumbbells and stuff, you can kind of think about this. You can really brace yourself, and you can get your head over your foot in some of these situations and be safer even just picking up a bag of groceries. So it's called a same side stride. Elbow up. On this side, slow down. You should be here. Yep. Just stay here. Okay? Now start to run, and you're dropping that elbow. Good. Like you're carrying a football. But drive that. Watch me from the front for a second. Drive this elbow up. Boom, 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 boom. You're right in here. You're short on one side, long on the other side.
It does feel funky.
It feels really weird. Other side. Other side. You can even like carry a football.
No,
and do
for
some
sure,
of this.
for sure. Like a rugby.
So we're here. Now we're gonna go both. Really boundful. Boom, boom, boom.
It definitely helps me get off the ground quicker though.
It's a nice pop. Again, this is not gonna be something where you run this way all the time. It's just a feel, because our spine should be moving well when we're running. It should be moving back and forth. So we'll go left again. I did this to the Dr. Dre song. You ever see that video?
I think I did see that.
Go to the right. Now go down the middle. Boom. Good, try them with these. See if we can get these to snap. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, this actually adds a nice weight to it too.
Bring that left elbow higher.
Here?
Yeah, there you go. Right elbow low towards the hip, left elbow towards the shoulder. It'll bring your speed up.
Yeah, it makes me want to go. It makes me want to fucking go. I do feel that the side abdomen crunch though happening.
Good, now just take it and go. Speed up a bunch. Yeah, there you go. Good, get a nice feel for it. Side to side, left to right. There you go, Matt. Nice.
That's a very interesting style. I saw some of that like with David Weck and Mark. I was like, it looks very interesting. But that energy return, it does feel nice. It's a better sprinter mechanic. It's important to keep your speed up, people. Marathoners, they don't want to, I always tell them, yo, keep your fast twitch muscle fibers in place,
Right.
especially as marathon runners. For me, I mean, I got that from football, right. And I just don't want to lose it, you know? I want to be able to jump, all that stuff. Sprint, jump, land on the ground.
Another thing you can try is like, so we were just working on this side to side motion. You can get some really nice rotation going. There's so many things we can do when we're running. You can actually take your hips and move your hips to the left and move your hips to the right slightly. Again, this is not necessarily a good form running drill. This is a proprioception thing. This is, you're in the middle of a run, you've been running for 12 miles for the day, and you're just bored. And you want to switch things up a bunch. Start to play with your body, and you'll be surprised what you feel. Maybe there's some people talk about push with the tush.
Yeah.
And some people will say that your big toe is connected to your butt. So you can think about a little flex of the big toe, a little flex of the butt cheek.
Yep.
You can have your hands there and kind of feel things out. What we don't realize sometimes, our butt can help protect our back.
Yeah.
Our hamstring can help protect our knees. So if you pull and push with the toe, pull with the other toes, but push off with the big toe, and do a little mini leg curl, you can protect your butt, protect your back and your knees a bit. You also can protect your back tremendously by keeping a nice neutral spine. See where Matt's hips are? His hips aren't forward and like closed off, but his hips aren't back. He's not overarched. That'll put a ton of stress.
Well then, Mark, later in the races, you see a lot of runners like this.
Oh yeah.
When their form starts to break down, versus when you see him at mile 2 of a marathon. Ideally, the best runner is Kipchoge. Dude, he looks fresh.
Yeah.
26. It's an amazing thing. To create that type of endurance for yourself is a big challenge, obviously.
You can really think about almost as if something's pulling you upward.
Yeah, like a drawstring.
Yeah, by your head. Yeah. And it almost feels like you're leaning backwards. But if you're looking at me, I'm not leaning backwards. I'm just straight up and down. When it comes to sprinting, there's a lot of talk about, not having your foot on the ground for a very long period of time, right? Because you're able to transfer that strength and propel yourself forward really well. Well, I think sometimes for a distance runner, I think it's okay to drag the feet a bit, stay low and nice and easy, especially to mitigate injury. But with that extra time on the ground, we can concentrate more on shoving forward. So I can do what Matt said and think about some of those fast twitch muscle fibers, and I can get a little pushing going on with the glute, whereas like when you're sprinting, you're not able to think of anything. Going way too fast.
It's always interesting to me where your body's sore the next day.
Oh yeah.
That gives you a great sign of how efficient your body's moving and what muscles you're utilizing. For a long time, I wouldn't feel soreness in the posterior chain. And then I was like, hold on, to your Mark's point of like having like a neutral spine, but like almost sitting in the back chain. Like right now, I'm like kind of like leaning forward, my knees are bent, and like I feel a lot of work in my glute.
I like how his feet are pointing pretty straight. If you run and your feet are out, to kind of have this like loop with this back foot or something, you're like, what the hell's going on? Yeah. Well, for some people, it's like, this is the way your body's moving currently. So any small change is a massive change, especially if you're somebody that's running miles. That's a lot of steps. So take it day by day, nice and easy, but find a line and run kind of close to it. Like if you're a wider person, you got wider steps, you might be outside the line a bit, but where are you landing? Slow down a lot. Might even have to stop occasionally and kind of see like, how am I landing? For me, I swing out and then like inward. That's not great either. You want this forward foot position to come from a corkscrew of the hips. For me, I have to actually intentionally screw the hips forward a bit from building up my legs from squats where I was out. I have to kind of shove them a little bit. So be a little cautious with that, but it'll pay huge dividends over time. So I was at a powerlifting meet and Ed Cohn was there, one of the guys I was coaching. He bombed out in the deadlift. And in the powerlifting, you start out with a squat, then you bench, then you deadlift. You get 3 attempts at each one, and you can't go any lower in the weight that you select from the beginning. So if you start out with a 500-pound deadlift, you can't go down to 490 and try to do that.
Fair, you have to stay at the same weight.
Yeah, you can only keep the same weight or go up in weight. And so this guy comes out having a great contest. He made all 3 squats, made all 3 benches. I was like, oh my God, we hit this deadlift up and it's game over. You're gonna get a PR total. You're gonna have a PR squat, PR bench, PR deadlift. It's gonna be the most insane day for you.
Yeah.
Without me knowing, he switched in his opening deadlift attempt because he was fired up and excited to like 515, and he goes out. He doesn't even budget off the ground at all for his first one.
How much up was that? 15 pounds?
Yeah, it was just 15 pounds. He didn't realize that like the day, how to price. And it was like from 496 to like 523 or something like that.
Oh God, yeah.
So it was a pretty big difference. And I look at Ed Cohn and my eyes are like this. So he goes out for a second one and he misses it too. And I'm about to laugh and Ed goes, don't laugh. He's like, you do this shit long enough and everything will happen to you. I was like, fair enough. I understand. He goes out and misses his 3rd deadlift too. I think only the 2nd attempt was the one that like slightly came off the ground. So anyway, the point in that story is that if you run long enough, if you lift long enough, and you do these things at intense levels, anything and everything can happen. You know, you wouldn't expect that to happen for someone to make an error. They could have easily just did a light deadlift.
Yeah, it's been a great day.
And had a great day.
He would have pulled 496.
Oh, he would have definitely made that. Yeah.
And obviously the fatigue from the 2 other lifts led to that.
Well, it's kind of like if you're running a marathon and you're at mile, even if you run a half marathon and you're at mile 6, you're like, this is cake. Don't speak too soon.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's cool that it feels good. And if it feels better than training, that's great. But don't speed up. Don't change anything. Don't get arrogant with it. Just stay in that pocket.
Yeah, it's not until like you get like to the last 5K in a half, I feel like that you could, if you feel good, yeah. And the marathon is kind of like at the 10K point.
Yeah.
Because that's really when the race starts, you know? Because if you're huffing and puffing at 20, it's gonna be a hard 10K, man.
We got to punch the eyeball again.
I love that. Did you guys put
Bang.
that there?
No, somebody else, probably some kid or something. All right, well, we hit up our run.
That's a run, 8 miles. You got 7, I think.
Nice.
It's a good freaking run right there.
Got some good running in, learned some stuff. Can you give us a couple pointers on just like run technique? Yeah, maybe give us 3 to 5 pointers on like, I don't know, how we should run, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a general level, if you can strike midfoot, working through your mechanics, I think that's always best. It's hard for me to be like, yo, this is the exact running form, right? I think you have to work with what you got. Start there, do some knowledge and education on like, all right, well, what do some of the best runners in the world do? Maybe you're taking little bits and pieces of what they do and implementing it into your running. I think something very simple and tactical. I just read this in Born to Run. It's called the 100 up. And here, hold these. And as simple as it sounds, all you're gonna do is just lift up your knee. At a base level, if you're someone that works a job and you're sitting down all day, stand up for a little bit and do 100 of these on each leg. And all you're doing is just driving your knee up. Try to get it to 90-degree angle. If this gets super easy, start to turn it into a running in place. Get this into your routine. There's a guy that was he was a doctor and he didn't have time to train for marathons. He did this every single day and he hit like a 2:40 marathon time. Something as simple as that, I'm telling you guys, like the 1% stuff, doing more soft tissue stuff, strengthening your feet. It would be hard for me to be like, this is exactly how you run. So I'd rather give tips on like small things that help you guys as humans that then translate into just getting 1% better every day. Start with the 100 and up stuff, do a lot of soft tissue work, and like that's like a good foundational point. And honestly, record yourself running. That's also something that really helps from the side, from the front, from the back, just to see where your foot is landing. If your knee's caving in a lot, that's not, if your knee valgus is happening, that's very poor and it leads to really bad mechanics. But I think seeing how you're running, most people never see how they run. They go on a run, they bring their phone, but they never record themselves. Going on a treadmill or something like that could really, really be beneficial.
What about, let's say, the furthest I've ever run is 2 to 3 miles. It's been a while. I'm in like decent shape, but I have no cardio. How do I progress on my running? I go out for a run, let's say, I go out on a run next week and I find myself just huffing and puffing. I can't breathe. How do I start to make a little bit of progress and get myself to maybe be able to efficiently run 3 to 5 miles?
I would do a walk jog. Some people call it a fartlek workout. It's like speed play where you're running faster and then slower tempos, but even a walk jog where you walk, let's just say for 2 minutes and then you jog for 1 minute and just do that for 25 to 30 minutes. I think that's a great foundational, like just build up. And anyone could do that. And you can use a track if you want to use the straightaways, walk the curves, like that's another great way to use a track. But even if you're on the road, use objects to deceive your mind,
I do that a lot.
right? Like that lamp, we're gonna run to that lamp and then we'll walk. Go for chill a little bit. Maybe you bring in a friend with you and you guys do it together. But use objects around you so you can kind of play mind games with yourself.
Yeah, walk jog is super effective, and it's my understanding that some people will utilize walk jog technique in ultra marathons, and now they're starting to actually win them.
Yes.
Like they're really successful. They're getting really, really good times with walking and running, right?
It's a common thing in the ultra space to basically walk all the inclines and try to jog and run straightaways and the downhills. And it is a great strategy because, you know, people say life's a marathon, Mark.
It feels defeat. Like in my head, I'm like, that's like defeated.
Not at all though, because it's such a long.
Strategy.
It's a strategy. Life's really like an ultra marathon. Like you go through a lot of highs and lows during that race, and conserving energy for the end is super important because a lot of people will burn out at 30 miles, at 50 miles, and that's just when you got 50 more miles, Mark. It'll play with your mind if you're feeling shitty at the halfway point.
Have you ever driven a Tesla before?
I actually have driven, my stepdad has a Tesla.
What about a Plaid?
Not a Plaid.
Today will be the first day.
Let's go.
You have a license, right?
I do have a license, I do.
All right, we'll see what happens. All right, we're gonna head to the gym. We're gonna have a workout. Where can people find you? Where can they find out more information on you?
Yeah, you guys can find me on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Matt Choi 6, and I'm on YouTube as well, just Matthew Choi. But great run, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're gonna have him on the podcast, and
I'm excited.
Fired up to see what we can do today. Catch you guys later. Strength is never weakness, weakness is never strength. See y'all later.